नित्यानन्दाय गुरवे शिष्यसंसारहरिणे भक्तकाये कदेयाय नमस्ते चित्सदात्मने ॐ सहना भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ नमो गुरुभ्यो गुरुपादुकाभ्यो नमः परेभ्यः परपादुकाभ्यः आचार्यसिद्धेश्वरपादुकाभ्यो नमो नमः श्री भगवान् सदा शिवऋषि नानाविधानि छन्दांसि श्री गुरु परमात्मा देवता अम्बिजं सा शक्तिक्रम किलकं श्री गुरु प्रसार सिद्ध्यार्थे जपे विनियोगा आता ध्यानम् हंसाभ्यां परिवृत पत्रकमले जीवे जगत्कारणे विश्वोकीर्णमनेकदे अनिलये स्वच्छन्दमां नेचया तद्योतं परशम्भवं त्रिचरणं दीपाङ्कुरग्राहिणाम् शाश्वताम् मम चतुर्विधा पुरुषार्थ सिद्ध्यार्थे जपे विनियोगा सुता उवाच कैलासशिखरे रम्ये भक्तिसन्धाननायकम् प्रणम्य पार्वती भक्त्या शङ्करं प्राय पृच्छति श्री प्रदेहि मे हे रमणेन भस्वामि देहि ब्रह्ममयो भवे कृपां कुरु मे स्वामी नमामि चरणौ तव ईश्वर उवाच मम रूपासि देवी त्वं त्वत्प्रीत्यर्थं वदाम्यहम् लोकोपकारका प्रश्नो नाकेनापि कृता पुरा दुर्लभं कृष्णलोकेषु तत्तुरुष्वावदाम्यहम् गुरुर्विना ब्रह्मणान्यात् सत्यं सत्यं वरानने वेदशास्त्रपुराणानि इतिहासादिकानि च मन्त्रयन्त्रादिविद्याश्च स्मृतिरुचातनारिकाम् शैवशाक्तागमादीनि अन्यानि विविधानि च अपभ्रंशकराणि जीवानां प्रान्ततेजसाम् यज्ञोव्रतं तपोदानं जपतीर्थं तथैव च गुरुतत्त्वमविज्ञाय गुरास्ते चरते जनाः गुरुबुद्ध्या मनोरञ्जनं सत्यं सत्यं न संशयः कल्लकर्तं प्रयत्नस्तु कर्तव्यो हि मनीषिभिः गुरुविद्या जगन्माया ज्ञानसम्भवा उदयो या प्रकाशेन गुरुशब्देन कथ्यते सर्वपापविशुद्धात्मा श्रीगुरो पादसेवनात् देहि ब्रह्मविद्यास्मात् चक्रवर्तं वदामि ते गुरुपादाम्बुजं स्मृत्वा जलं शिरसि धारये सर्वतीर्थावगाहस्य सम्प्राप्नोति फलं नरः शोषणं पापभङ्गस्य दीपनं ज्ञानतेजसा गुरुकारोदकं सम्यक् संसारावतारकम् अज्ञानमूलहरणं जन्मकर्मनिवारणं ज्ञानवैराग्यसिद्ध्यर्थं गुरुपादोदकं पिबेत् गुरुपादोदकं पीत्वा गुरुशिष्यभोजनं गुरुमूर्ते सदा ध्यानं गुरुमन्त्रं सदा जपेत् काशीक्षेत्रं तन्निवासो जानमि चरणोदकम् गुरुईश्वर साक्षात् आरजं ब्रह्मनिश्चितम् गुरुपादोदकं यत्तु तयसो सोक्षयो वठा तीर्थराज प्रयागश्च गुरुमूर्तेन नमो नमः गुरुमूर्तिं स्मरे नित्यं गुरुनामा सदा जपेत् गुरुराज्यं न कुर्वीत गुरुरन्यान् भावयेत् गुरुवक्त्रसितं ब्रह्म प्राप्यते तत्प्रसादतः गुरुर्ज्ञानं सदा कुर्यात् गुरुस्वे स्वापतीयता स्वशमं च स्वजातिं च स्वर्गति पुष्टिवर्धनम् एतत् सर्वं परित्याज्य गुरुरन्यान् भावयेत् अनन्याश्चिन्तयन्तो मां सुलभं परमं पदम् तस्मात् सर्वप्रयत्नेन गुरुराराधनं कुरु त्रैलोक्ये स्फुटवत्तारो देवाद्यसुरपदः गुरुवक्त्रसुता विद्या गुरुभक्त्या च लभ्यते गुरुकारस्त्वन्धकारश्च गुरुकारस्तेज उच्यते अज्ञानाग्रसतं ब्रह्म गुरुरेव न संशयः गुरुकार तमो वर्णो मायादिगुणभासका दुःखाद्वितीयो ब्रह्मा मायाभ्रान्ति विनाशना एवं गुरुपदं श्रेष्ठं देवानामपि दुर्लभम् आहुर्गणेशेव गन्धर्वैश्च पूज्यते ध्रुवं तेषां च सर्वेषां नास्ति तद्वं गुरुपरम् आसनं शयनं वस्त्रं भूषणं वा नारिकाम् साधकेन प्रदातव्यं गुरुसन्तोषकारकम् गुरुराराधनं कार्यं स्वजीवित्वं निवेदये कर्मणा मनसा वाचा नित्यमाराधयेत् गुरुम् दीर्घदण्डं नमस्कृत्य निर्लज्जो गुरुसानिधौ शरीरमिन्द्रियं प्राणं सद्गुरुभ्यो निवेदये आत्मकाररिकं सर्वं सद्गुरुभ्यो निवेदये भस्मविष्टा दुर्गन्धिमलमुद्गकं श्लेष्मयत्तं चामंसं मञ्चयेन वरानने संसारवृक्षमारूढः अतन्तो नरकर्णवे येन चेवोद्धृता सर्वे तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः एतवे जगतामेव संसाराणामसेतवे प्रभवे सर्वविद्यानां सम्भवे ज्ञानजनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः त्वं पिता त्वं च मे माता त्वं बन्धुस्त्वं च देवता घोरार्थं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः यत्सत्येन जगत्सत्यं यत्प्रकाशेन भाति यदानन्देन नन्दन्ति तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः यस्य स्थित्या सत्यमिदं यावति भानुरूपता प्रियं पुत्रार्यप्रीत्या तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः येन चेतायते इदं चित्तं चेतायते नयनं जाग्रत्स्वप्नशशिव्यारि तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः यस्य ज्ञानानिरं विश्वं न दृश्यं येन वेदसा अनेकरूपाय तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः यस्य मतं तस्य मतं मातं यस्यानभेरसा अनन्यभावभावाय तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः यस्य कारणरूपस्य कार्यरूपेण भात्या कार्यकारणरूपाय तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः ज्ञानरूपमिदं सर्वं नाकिनाप्यस्ति भिन्नतः कार्यकारणता चैव तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः यदङ्घ्रिकमलद्वन्द्वं द्वन्द्वतापनिवारकं तारकं सर्वदा पद्भ्यः श्रीगुरुं प्रणमम्यहम् विवेकृते गुरुस्वात्मा गुरुकृते शिवो नहि तस्मात् सर्वप्रयत्नेन वन्दे गुरुपरद्वन्द्वं त्वमनश्चित्तगोचरं श्वेतरक्तप्रभावेन शिवशक्त्यात्मकं परं दुःकरं च स्वरूपां च यो रद्यात् स गुरुस्मृता आत्रिनेत्र सर्वसाक्षी आचतुर्बाहुरचिता आचतुर्वदनो ब्रह्मा श्रीगुरु कथिता प्रिये अयम् आयाजलिर्बाधो दायसागरवृत्तये यदनुग्रहतो जन्तु चित्रसंसारमुक्तिभाग् श्रीगुरो परमं रूपं विवेकचक्षुषोमुखं मन्दभाग्यान् पश्यन्ति अन्धसूर्योदयं यथा श्रीनाथचरणद्वन्द्वं यस्यां दिशि विराजते तस्यै दिशि नमस्कुर्यात् भक्त्या प्रतिदिनं प्रिये तस्यै दिशि सततमञ्जलिष आर्ये प्रक्षिप्यते मुखरितो मरुतेर्बुधश्च भगवान् गुरुचक्रवर्ती विश्वोदय प्रणनाथन नित्य साक्षी श्रीनाथारि गुरुत्रयं गणपति नितत्रयं भैरवान् सिद्धोपमधुकत्रयं परैकां दूतीकमं मण्डलाम् हिरण्यश्रुतशिष्टशास्त्रिनवकां वीरावली पञ्चकां श्रीमामालिनी मन्त्रराजसहितां वन्दे गुरुं मण्डलाम् व्यासे सकलेषु दीर्घमणिले व्याधिकरे दुष्करे प्राणायामशक्तिरनेककरणे दुःखात्मके दुर्जये यस्मिन्नाभिदिते विनश्यति बले वायुस्वयं तत्क्षणात् प्राप्तं तत्सहजं स्वभावमनिशान् सेवार्थमेकं गुरुम् देशिकस्यैव शरीरचिन्तनं भवेदन्तस्य शिवस्य चिन्तनं स्वदेशिकस्यैव च नामकीर्तनं भवेदन्तस्य शिवस्य कीर्तनं यः पररेणुकणिका पापि संसारवारिणे सेतुबन्धाय तेनार्थं देशिकां तामुपास्महे यस्मादनुग्रहाद्वा ध्यानमुत्सृजे तस्मै श्रीदेशिकेन्द्राय नमस्ताभीष्टसिद्धये आरब्धं सर्वसंसार दावानलविनाशकं ब्रह्मरन्ध्रे सुकम्बोजा मदीयसं चन्द्रमण्डले अपतारितिरे काव्ये सहस्रदलमण्डले हंसपार्श्वचिकोणे च स्मरेतन्मार्यगं गुरुम् सकलाभुवनसृष्टिः कल्पिता शेषपुष्टिर् दृष्टिः सम्परं व्यर्थदृष्टिः अवगुणपरिमार्थे तत्पदार्थैकदृष्टिः अवगुणपरमेष्टिः मोक्षमार्गैकदृष्टिः सकलाभुवनरङ्गा स्थापनास्तम्भयश्रीः सकरुणारसावृष्टिः अध्वमाला समास्तिः सकला समया सृष्टिः सच्चिदानन्ददृष्टिः निवासतु मयि नित्यं श्रीगुरो दिव्यदृष्टिः अग्निश्रुतसमञ्जात ज्वालपरीक्षकादिया मन्त्ररसामिमं मन्ये हर्निशं मृत्युचा तरे जति तने जति तद्गुरे तत्समीपके परन्तरस्य सर्वस्य तद् सर्वस्य भार्यथा Ajohama Chidananda Aniyama Toman Apurvanam Param Nityam Swayam Jyotirniramayam Dhirajam Paramakasham Yuvamanandamavyayam Shri Pratyakshamediyam Manumanashchatushtayam Yasya Chamatapo Veda Deshikam Cha Sarasmare Prananya Bhavam Karyam Kavarami Mamate Sarupam Chamaya Drishpam Vaidishtati Sampratam Akandamandalakaram Yaktam Vinacharacharam Tamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sarva Shuddhi Shiro Ratna Virajita Parampuja Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Yasya Smarana Madrena Jnanamuparyate Swayam Eva Sarva Sampraptis Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shatam Shantam Yomatitam Niranjanam Narabindu Kalatitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Stavaram Jaramam Shaiva Tata Chaiva Characharam Yaktam Vena Jagat Sarvam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Jnana Shakti Samarudas Tatvamala Vibhushita Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Aneka Jamma Samprapta Sarva Karma Vidayine Swapmakyana Prabhavena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Nagarorarikam Tattvam Nagarorarikam Tapa Tattvam Yana Param Nasti Manata Shri Jagannatha Madguru Shri Jagadguru Mama Sarva Bhutatma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Jnanamulam Guru Murti Pujamulam Guru Param Mantramulam Guru Vakyam Mokshamulam Guru Kripa Guru Aniranarishya Guru Paramadevata Guru Parataram Nasti Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sapta Sagara Padayanta Tirthasanarikam Salam Gururam Kripayo Bindu Sasam Shena Durlabam Arurushte Guru Shrata Guru Rushena Kastana Tasmat Sarva Prayanena Shri Gurum Sharanam Vraje Guruveva Jagat Sarvam Brahma Vishnu Shivatmakam Nasti Tasmat Sampujaya Guru Jnana Vijnana Saitam Labhyate Guru Bhaktita Guru Parataram Nasti Yeyo So Guru Margivi Yasmat Parataram Nasti Neti Neti Tiveshtuti Manasa Vacha Sacheva Nityamaradhaye Guru Guru Kripa Prasadena Brahma Vishnu Sarashiva Samartha Prabhavadocha Kevalam Guru Sevaya Devaki Naragandarva Vitaro Yakshacharna Munayo Prina Jananti Guru Sushane Vidim Mahankara Garvena Apavidya Malanvita Samsara गुरुसेवा परं मुखा ज्ञानं शृणु महादेवे सर्वानन्दप्रदायकं सर्वसौख्यकरं नित्यं मुक्तिविदायकं श्रीमत्परब्रह्म गुरुं स्मरामि गुरुं वरामि श्रीमत्परब्रह्म गुरुं नमामि श्रीमत्परब्रह्म गुरुं भजामि ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तद्ब्रह्मस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं निर्मलमचलं सर्वधि साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि नित्यं सुखं निराभासं निराकारं निरञ्जनं नित्यपूर्णं चिदानन्दं गुरुब्रह्मणमव्ययम् उदम्बुजे कर्णिकामर्यसंस्थे सिंहासने संस्थित्य दिव्यमूर्तिं ध्यायेत् गुरुं चन्द्रकलाप्रकाशं श्रीपुस्तकभीष्टवरं धराणां श्वेतम्बरं श्वेतविलेपपुष्पं तं द्विनेत्रं रामं कपित्यसित्य दिव्यशक्तिं मन्दस्मितं सान्द्रकृपानिरानाम् आनन्दमानन्दकरं प्रसन्नं ज्ञानस्वरूपमितबोधयुक्तं योगीन्द्रनित्यं भवरोगवैद्यं श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि यस्मिन् सुश्रीचुतिर्वंशं निग्रहानुग्राहकं नित्यं च वीरं शाश्वतं दासतीर्थं नमाम्यहम् वाताशिरशिशुकाब्जे दीर्घं द्विभुजं गुरुं वरभययुतं शान्तं स्मरेतं नाम पूर्वकम् न गुरुररितं न गुरुरिकं शिवशासनता 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 चिरमेव शिवं चिरमेव शिवं चिरमेव शिवं चिरमेव शिवं मम शासनतो मम शासनतो मम शासनतो मम शासनता एवं विधं गुरुं यात्वा ज्ञानमुपाद्यते स्वयं तत्सद्गुरु प्रसादेन मुक्तोऽहमिति भावये गुरुदर्शितमार्गेण मनःशुद्धिं तु कारये अनित्यं कान्दरे सर्वं यत्किञ्चिन्धर्मगोचरम् एयं सर्वस्वरूपं च ज्ञानं च मानोच्यते ज्ञानमेव समं कुर्यान् नान्यपन्था एवं श्रुत्वा महादेवी गुरुनिन्दं करोति यः सायति नरकं घोरं यावच्चन्द्रदिवाकरम् यावकल्पं ततो देवास्तावदेव गुरुं स्मरे गुरुलोको न कर्तव्यः स्वच्छन्दो यदि वा भवेत् हुङ्कारेण न वक्तव्यं तद्निशेषे कथञ्चन गुरुरग्रेण वक्तव्यम् असत्यं च कराचना गुरुं संकृत्य गुरुं निर्जित्य वाचाम् अरण्ये डले देशे सा भवे ब्रह्म राक्षसा देवापि सूर्यवा शापितो यदि कालमृत्युभयाद्वापि गुरुराक्षाति Parvati Ashatahi Suagyascha Ashatamumayastata Guru Shapena Te Shigram Shayam Yanti Na Samshaya Mantra Raja Vinam Devi Guru Rityakshara Purinam Nitiyerartha Vakyena Guru Sakshat Paramvaram Shruti Smriti Avinyaya Kevalam Guru Sevakam Deve Sanyasina Prokta Nittare Veshadharina Nityam Brahma Nirakaram Nirgunam Bhurye Param Nirabhasam Deepo Deepantaram Yatha Guru Kripa Prasadena Atmaramam Nirikshaye Anina Guru Margena Swatmajnanam Pravartate Abrahmasta Bapadayantam Arumama Swarupakam Stavaram Jagamam Sheva Pranamami Jaganmayam Vandeham Sanchidanandam Veratitam Saragurum Nityam Purnam Nirakaram Nirgunam Swapna Samsitam Parataram Veyam Nityamananda Karakam Udaya Kashamadhyastam Sudasvati Kasanivam Svatika Pratimarupam Drishyate Darpane Yutam Tatamani Chirakaram Anandam Sonityatam Ambushamantra Purusham Rayataschimayam Pradhim Tatra Spurati Bhavoya Shinutam Katayam Yam Ambusharam Tathagamyam Namarupa Vivarjitam Nishabdam Javijaniyat Sabhavam Brahma Parvati Ananda Sabhavena Karpura Kusumarishu Siddhasnari Sabhavena Aja Brahma Cha Shashvatam Swayam Tata Vido Bhutva Sattavyam Yatra Kutrachit Chitta Brahma Ravatatra Jnanam Bhavati Tadrusham Inde Pare Tatha Rupe Mukto Sonata Samshaya Shri Parvati Uvacha Indam Kintu Mahadeva Param Kim Samudaratam Rupam Vindurati Edadatyahi Shankara Shri Mahadeva Uvacha Pindam Kundalini Shakti Paramam Samudaratam Rupam Vindurati Gyeyam Rupatitam Niranjanam Inde Mukta Pare Mukta Rupe Mukta Varanane Rupati Chetuye Muktas Se Mukta Natra Samshaya Swayam Sarva Mayo Bhutva Param Tavam Vilokaye Paraparataram Nanyam Sarvametan Niramayam Adinishvara Shankas Vishatita Prasadata Adamba Janaladamba Sababa Bauram Chitam दुष्कर्म यत्कृतं इदं तु भक्तिभावेन पठते शृणुते अव्यं तत्सर्वं सफलं भवेत् गुरुगीतामकं देवे सुरातवं मयूरितं भावव्यारे विनाशार्थं स्वयमेव जपे सदा गुरुगीताक्षरे कंसु मन्त्ररसामिमं जपे अन्ये च विविधा मन्त्रा फलानान्ति षोडशीम् अनन्तफलमनोचि गुरुगीता जपेन च सर्वदारिद्र्यनाशनम् कालमृत्युभयारं सर्वसङ्कटनाशनम् रक्ष रक्ष शुभदानं चोरव्यापाम् भाव्यानि अहं सर्वं विभुतिसिरिदं भवेत् आत्मामोदं वश्यं स्वयमेव जपे सदा आशने रोगसम्भवात् मेदिन्यां दुःखमाप्नोति अष्टे भवति निष्फला कृष्णादिनेयनसिद्धिर् मोक्षसिद्ध्याग्रचर्मणि कुशसनेयनसिद्धिः सर्वसिद्धिस्तुकन्दले श्रीवादुर्वया देवी आसने शुभ्रकम्बले उपदिशततो देवी जपे दिक्रातमानसा येयं शुक्लं च सन्ध्यर्थं वशिरतासनं प्रियेत् अभिचारे कृष्णवर्णं पितर्वर्णं धनागमे उत्तरे शान्तिकामस्तु वशिपूर्वामुको जपेत् दक्षिणे मारणं प्रोक्तं पश्चिमे च धनागमात् मोहनं सर्वभूतानां बन्धमोक्षाकरं भवेत् देवराजा प्रियकरं सर्वलोकवशं भवेत् सर्वेषां सम्मनकरं दुष्कर्मनाशनं सेवा सुकर्मसिद्धिं भवेत् आसीदं सदये कार्यं नवग्रहाभयापहं दुःस्वप्ननाशनं सेवा दुःस्वप्नफलदायकं सर्वशान्तिकरं नित्यं तथावद्यासपुत्रम् अवेदव्यङ्करं श्रीमान् सौभाग्यदायकं सदा आयुरारोग्यमेश्वर्यं पुत्रपौत्रवर्धनम् अकमता श्रीविरवा मोक्षमवाप्नुयात् वेदव्यं सकामात् अपहारकम् सर्वबाधाप्रशमनं धर्मतः काममोक्षदम् यं यं चिन्तयते कामं तं तं प्राप्नोति निश्चितम् कामिकस्य कामधेनु कल्पना कल्पपारपा चिन्तमानिश्चिन्तस्य सर्वमङ्गलकारकम् मोक्षहेतुर्जपे नित्यं मोक्षश्रेयामवाप्नुयात् भोगकामो जपे यो वे तस्य कामफलप्रदम् जपे चातससोरश्च नरपद्यश्च वैष्णवा सेवाश्च शरीरं देवी सत्यं सत्यं न संशया आतकाम्य जपे स्थानं अत्तयामि वरानने सागरे वा सरितीरे अत्तवारे अरालये शक्तिदेवालये गोष्ठे भक्ति आसनस्था शयानो वा दशशिष्टवरानपि अश्वरुद्धो गजारुदा सुप्तो वा जागृतोऽपि वा सुचिस्मसरध्याने गुरुगीता जपेन तस्य दर्शनमात्रेण पुनर्जन्म विद्यते समुद्रे च यथा तोयं क्षीरे क्षीरं गते गतां जले कुम्भे यथाकाशात् अतमपरमात्मने तथैव ज्ञानी जीवात्मा आरमात्मानि लीयते एकेन रमते ज्ञानी यत्र तत्र दिवानिशाम् एवं विद्धो महामुक्तः सवर्वर्तते बुधः तस्य सर्वप्रयत्नेन भावभक्तिं करोति यः सर्वे गुरुगीता जपेन सर्वसिद्धिं प्राप्नुवन्ति मुक्तिं न संशयः सत्यं सत्यं पुनः सत्यं धर्मं सत्यं मयोनितं गुरुगीता समं नास्ति सत्यं सत्यं वरानने तद्धर्म एकनिष्ठा परं च गुरुपरतरं अन्यं नास्ति तत्त्वं गुरुपरम् मातधन्या पिता धन्यो धन्यो वाचा कुलं च धन्या च वसुधा देवी गुरुभक्ति सुदुर्लभा शरीरमेन्द्रियं प्राणश्च चर्कस्वजानबन्धवा माता पिता कुलं देवी गुरुरेव न संशया अकल्पच मनाकोट्या जपव्रता तपाप्रिया तत्सर्वं सकलं देवी गुरुसन्तोषमात्रता विद्यतापो बलेनेव मन्दपयाश्चयेन गुरुसेवां न कुर्वन्ति सत्यं सत्यं वरानने देवर्षि पितृकिन्नरा सदाचारान् याक्षाश्च अनेके मुनयो जनाः गुरुभाव परं तीर्थम् अन्यतीर्थं निरर्थकं सर्वतीर्थाश्रयो देवी सारं दुष्टं च वर्तते सर्वान् स्थानानि चारं तानि च जपानिरासनं कुर्वन् हीनकर्मफलात्पदान् गुरुगीतां प्रयाणेव सङ्ग्रामे रूपसङ्कटे पञ्चयमवन्दोति सर्वकर्म च सर्वत्र गुरुपुत्रस्य सेव्यते इरं नासनो वाचं कवरे कथितं मया शुभोभ्यां च प्रयत्नेन ममां त्वं प्राप्नुयात्मिति स्वामी मुख्य गणेशारि विष्णवरिणं च पार्वती मनसाप्येन वक्तव्यं सत्यं सत्यं वदाम्यहम् अतीव पार्वचिताय ताय च प्रवक्तव्यमिदं देवी मम मासि सदा प्रिये अभक्ते वञ्चके दुर्थे पाकने नास्तिके नरे मनसाप्येन वक्तव्या गुरुगीता करार्चना संसारसागर समुद्रनेकमात्रं नमादिदेवमुनिपूजितस्य च वन्दे महाभायानं गुरुराजमन्त्रम् samsara harine bhaktakaye kadeyaya namaste chitsadatmane
Devasanam
kamsham savadosha vivarjitam niralambam nirantam tam nityanandam namayam nirmamam nirantaram samaloshtashmakansanam samaluka sukhamaniram avarutam namayam avinashiramamanam ekavijnaya tattvatam Uttaranavayakrutam Nityanandam namamiham Naham Deo Name Deo Jivanamamichi Evam Vignaya Santushtam Samasakalpanamantram Atmamukta Sanatana Iti Vignaya Sandruptam Nityanandam namamiyam Yanagniram Parvanam Amasankalpavarjitam Eyom Hare Ainam Tam Avadutam namamiyam Svabhavene Vayo Yogi Sukham Bhogam Navanshati Yadrushalabha Santushtam Savikhriyate manam Amakhviram almanam Avadutam namayam Nityam jagradavastayam Pavnavadyovatishtate Nasti Nasti asya shiva shivam Avadutam namayam Charam Vashati no yastu Jagavashanti Chinmayam Nitya Yuktam Gunatitam Nityanandam Namayam Yohi Darshana Matrena Avate Bhuvanatayam Pavanam Jagamam Tirtam Avadutam Namayam Sarva Pujam Sarapurnam Akandananda Vigram Swaprakasham Chiranandam Nityanandam Namamyam Nishkalam Nishkriyam Shantam Nirmalam Paramamurtam Ganesha Purivasinam Avadutam Namamyam Yoga Purnam Tapomurti Premapurnam Surarshanam Jnana Purnam Kripamurti Sadhana Shanti Matriya Shanto Moche Vandevyo Murta Shanyan Vimochaye Swasti Bhutan, Suvidatam Noastu, Yoge Vatase Masurya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Arati Karum Sada Guru Ki Karum Sada Guru Ki Sadhgurunad Maharaj Ki Jai. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday morning satsang here at Shanti Mandir. And as Baba Muktananda always said, it is with great respect and great love, a very heartfelt welcome to everyone. So thank you all for being here. And I was thinking each Sunday of every single week, every single month, every single year, we gather here together steadily in the practice to practice. And we practice our chants, we practice the meditation together, but everything steadily together. And when Gurudev's here, he always brings a special fragrance, a special flavor to that which we do every single week. So we're very honored to have him with us until the end of November. And each year he chooses a topic or a text that we study for that next year. So usually it's around December time. So this year he chose the topic of this text, Gita. So when we started to, we're going to hear from some speakers in a minute, so let me not get too far ahead of myself. I get very excited, and then it's hard to bring it all down a few notches. Okay, so in April of 2020, when COVID manifested for all of us, Shanti Mandir, as another branch of the tree, started to offer online offerings. And in that context, we had 3 teachers who came forward and have been committed and dedicated to those online offerings. So yesterday, Gurudev said, why don't we have each of them speak for 10 minutes? And he said each one of them can choose a verse from the Guru Gita and speak for 10 minutes. So in thinking about that, we're just so fortunate to have all that we have here at the ashram, the grounds of the ashram. Anywhere you move to, little by little, year by year, things blossoming. Gurudev spoke yesterday about the Roots and the Wings village, and when he was talking about that, which is our school again, and we need the wings so that everybody can expand and blossom. And I was thinking that may all of us become rooted like Bhagavan Nityananda, immovable, but be as free as Muktananda and be able to soar. The beautiful space of the self. And so all of these studies, all of these practices, everything that we do here is in that light, it's in that feeling, it's in that bhav. So our first speaker this morning is Nicheshwari, and she conducts the Monday mornings for the Spanish-speaking devotee attendance that we have. And that's on the Guru Gita. It happens every single Monday. And as I said, each one of these individuals, it's a commitment because it's every single week. So there are times when maybe there's a pause or a hiatus in between or something, but for the most part, this continues every single week. So Nicheshwari's first, and she'll speak on her favorite verse from the Guru Gita for 10 minutes.
Now the challenge is to speak for only 10 minutes. Okay, Sadhgurunad Maharaj Ki Jai. When we had the intensive on the Guru for Guru Purnima called The Glory of the Guru, Gurudev gave a talk, and after the talk, he gave, after the pause, lunch, etc., he gave the meditation instructions. And when he started on the meditation instructions, I was surprised that he did not start with the usual, what we call the introductory poems or the introductory praise, but he used for shlokas or for paragraphs. So he started with the Akananda, Mananda, Akaram, and then he went on to the 34, Ajnana, Timirandasya, and then the 76, Dhyana, Mulam, one of the most popular ones, and the 89, Brahmanandam, Paramasukadam, which is really my favorite, but I'm not going to speak about it today. And I met over the years many people who love this poem, the 89, and we call ourselves, the group, the 89ers, because we really love it more than anything and words can say. But today, I was thinking, okay, the meditation is the root of this and that. I know that verse, and it's very popular. But what about we do 34? Because 34 talks about, etymologically, what the Guru means, it takes you from darkness to light. So 34 talks about it, about taking us, and the meaning of darkness and the meaning of light. So I love it. So what I said is, he says in English, I bow to that Guru by whose stick of knowledge the eyes of those who have been blinded by the darkness of ignorance are opened. Each one of these verses really could turn into a long talk because there's so much, I shouldn't say meat because we're vegetarian, but substance. So then I went on to 34. And it talks about how we live in ignorance and therefore in darkness all the time. And we think that we walk, but we're not progressing. We're not making, we're not advancing. And we think we're hearing, but we're really not hearing the depths of the teachings. And we think we're seeing, but we see in a very limited way. So it talks about how limited we are until we get the awakening, the diksha, the initiation by the Guru. So this brought me to a story that I heard, and I like it, and I think it's good for this. The story is a sage that is going to cross the river. He needs to go from one side of the river to the other side, and therefore he gets on a boat with a rowman or rower, the person who works on the boat. And while they're crossing the river, he is asking him, do you even know how to read and write? And he says, no. All I do is this, I row my boat. Ever had a discussion with sages? You must be traveling with other sages. No, I don't do that. All I do is row my boat. And then suddenly the boat begins to fill with water. So the cost to cross from one side to the river to the other was 50 cents. And so the rower asked the sage, do you know how to swim? And he says, no, I don't know how to swim. He says, well, there goes all your knowledge. It's not worth even 50 cents. So that shows us that really a lot of knowledge in reality is a lot of darkness. And as a sage and songwriter Bruce Springsteen expressed this very clearly on the idea of the excess of light that can blind us, just as the excess of darkness. So the eye is like it has to adjust itself, like when we come out of the movie theater, and then there's light, and it blinds us. Because he says we can be blinded by the light revved up like a deuce, another runner on the night. He explains here, what is it that really we obtain by following the teachings of the Guru? And it says word by word. Ajnana, for example, is very similar to ignorance. If you see it, it's the same I-G, ignorance. But it says the misconception thereof, it says here, of our true nature. The fundamental cause is aversion to the Lord. That's what it says. So the first word here, ajnana, means that we don't know exactly who we are, which is actually the only thing that matters in this world, because everything that seems to matters from the limited viewpoint of our limited perception. Therefore, at the end of the day, or when Lord Yama comes to say, okay, I got your number, then we go and we don't know exactly what we were doing here. Because we forget. Forgetfulness, misconceptions, all of that, it is like, for example, when you have a phone and you can record messages on the phone, like you press a button and you start speaking and it types it. It's really wonderful. But if you don't choose the language well, like if I want to do one in Spanish and it's typing in English, nobody understands anything. And therefore, we must be connected to the source so that that light comes and illumines everything. It says here in one explanation that I found, Timira, which is the second word, Timira, means translated as cataracts, because cataracts is not something that makes the person blind immediately, but it gradually is like a cloud that prevents us from looking at things the way we are, and then we start seeing just shadows. And the more shadows we see, the less clear, the perception comes, obviously. So this darkness of ignorance, they say, is known as deception, because all our wishes or desires and even our objectives in life are tainted by this. So when we think that we want dharma, artha, kama, moksha, that we want to achieve the objectives of life, but while the objectives of life are seen through the limited eye, then they don't bring us joy. So that's the main thing, is to be conscious of the true nature. This they tell you time and time and again. And this is what happens when the Guru applies the third word here, which is the knowledge in the form of an ointment. And I'm thinking of kajal, this thing we put in our eyes. According to Ayurveda, it has medicinal powers. So it's good for the eyes, it refreshes them, purifies them, and also allows you to see better. So the Guru comes and takes the applicator and puts the kajal in our eyes. And then it says that knowledge is getting to know like what we really are. There is a coating inside the eyelids that is covered with collyrium, says here, a medicated eye wash, long-standing Ayurvedic medicinal treatment for cataracts. So that would be what happens when we apply the medication, which is knowledge, true knowledge, vijnana. No? So then it explains also that it is not applied with the hand, but shalakaya, which is like an applicator, like a little stick in the eyes. And then this is also the rhyme with the verse. And we then can say, Chakshu, definitely not the eyes, the physical eyes, is the spiritual eye. What we would call maybe the third eye, or the spiritual eye, etc. And then the Guru, etymologically, is doing its job, which is to bring us from darkness to light. It says here, the syllable Gu means darkness, and the syllable Ru means its remover. A Guru is so called because he dispels darkness. And then it says here that the cataract, which is removed by the Guru, when he gives the divya, diksha, or the initiation, it eliminates forever the ignorance. Then we start living from the prism of knowledge, knowing who we are, then everything we see acquires that light, that perfect light. It gives an example here of a boy who is born in a dark prison house. A gentleman from outside comes to him and says, "Come, I will show you the sun." So he's never seen the sun, no? The boy picks up a candle, but the gentleman tells him there is no necessity of candle to see the sun. So the boy says, "Am I a fool? Nothing can be seen without the help of a light." The gentleman then drags the boy out to see the sun. And the boy exclaims, "Oh, by the sun's light, we can see everything." Such wonderfulness will come to a soul in bondage, like we are, when we establish the connection with Brahma. It's like when something is plugged to the power out, source, and then you have to also power it to your lamp or to your flashlight, because it has to be powered on both sides. This is how I understand this total wonder by the boy who finally sees the sun. And then there is a story of Krishna when he was in the assembly with the Kurus, because he was belonging to one of the families in the Bhagavad Gita. And he is having a conversation with these families before the war. And there is a king, and the king is actually blind. He doesn't see. He's not theologically blind, he's physically blind. And his name is Dhritarashtra, which is like sometimes when I read these words, I say, where are the vowels here? So this is the name of the king. And then Krishna is there, and suddenly he becomes, really that Lord. Because we see him as a person, and we see him as a Lord, and he exchanges it. It's like with the Guru, sometimes we see it like a familiar person, or no, hi, good morning, and sometimes like, oh my God, no. It's the same person, but depends on our perception that day or at that time of day. So he is there, and then he begins to show his power, he begins to show his divine nature, and they make comments, but Dhritarashtra, he cannot see anything. So he begs the Lord, please, can you please give me for a few seconds some sight? Because I hear you are looking your beautiful shape, and I don't see it. And then Krishna, he comes and says, you can see. I don't need to cure your eyes. I don't need to heal your eyes. You can see. And then he sees it with the spiritual eye. So this is a metaphor that is very beautiful of how we can continue to see, the reality of the things that need to be done and what we call the world, at the same time from the divine perspective. And then at the end, to finish, maybe when we do the study group, 9 out of 10 are women there, 9 out of 10 are Argentinian. So I thought how to create a dharana that we could use to do verse 34. So while we do our eyes, this is how I told them, we would do our eyes, we do mascara. Añana, Timirandasia, Jana, Shalaka, and then the shadow. Mascara, shadow, eyeliner, and then we do the fourth of Shiva's functions, which is concealing. So there's a concealer for all these fingers that are here. And at the end of the day, we simply wash our faces, clean everything, and what remains is a beautiful face, hopefully. That is the immanent image of Shiva. So we know by looking at the mirror that we have always been and will always be Shiva. So this is my more or less idea about this beautiful verse. And then next one.
Thank you, Niteshwari. And I have to let you know one thing, and that is that the last 3 days, Gurudev and I have been discussing that same verse, verse 34. So that was... So our next speaker is Dana Wilkinson. And, so let me just go back for 1 second. So anyone wishing to join the study group on Mondays in Spanish, or try to just even get the essence of it, you can join that class, 9:30 a.m. to 11 o'clock a.m., and that's every Monday, okay? And that timing is Eastern Standard Time. And the subject is the Guru Gita. Right? Yeah. Verse 123. So now we're going to hear from Dana Wilkinson, and he does the study groups every Saturday, and so far he's been doing Yoga Sutras, and also he's been doing Upaya. No, but I think, didn't we do that before? Shiva Sutras. So we did Shiva Sutras, we've done Upaya, and that's coming to a close here next week, and then he'll be leading the next study group with Yoga Sutras, with the Yoga Sutras, with Patanjali. So that'll be starting in another couple of weeks. We'll keep you informed of all of that. So Dana, we welcome you.
Sangurnath Maharaj ki jai. Glasses or no glasses? Yes, that's all we need. Yes. So the verse I'm doing is something I've been thinking about for a long time. It's really kind of the key to the Guru Gita for me. Right in the beginning, just quickly to give a little background, is that Shiva and Parvati are in Mount Kailash. They're having a conversation, and Parvati, who is the wife of Shiva, you have to say she's the Shakti. She's the Shakti that's within us. And as Gurudev said in his introduction to the word-by-word translation of the Guru Gita, which is in the bookstore, which you can buy, a conversation is actually internal. It's within all of us. So this conversation between absolute consciousness and Shakti that creates everything is within us, because there's mumukshutva, there's a desire for liberation. And on behalf of everyone here, everyone in the universe who has ever been born or will be born, Shakti or Parvati asks Shiva, Kena Margena Bo Swami, Dehi Brahman Mayo Bhavet. O Shiva, how can one who's identified with the physical body know his oneness with Brahman? And so the whole Guru Gita is an explanation of how that's possible. How is it possible for an individual who's identified with the body to become one with Brahman? A pretty big question. It holds all the elements of philosophy and has been discussed for centuries, so I better speed up. So the answer is given, the key answer is as in verse 21, when Shiva says to Parvati, in answer to this question, Ananyas chintayanto mam, sulabam paramam padam, tasmat sarva prayatnena, guru aradhanam kuru. Shiva says, Anantas chintayanto mam, contemplating me only. Sulabam paramam padam, one who contemplates Brahman alone. Like if I'm able to contemplate my inner self, which is, he's already explained, is one with Brahman, because the identification is a mistake. The identification with the body is an error. It's ignorance. It's this blindness. So if we are able to contemplate continuously, exclusively, then liberation comes to us easily. Sulabam paramam padam. Easily, paramam, the highest, padam, state. So sulabam, he'll attain easily the highest state. So, okay, that's great. So let's just contemplate God continuously. Or maybe 5 minutes? 10 minutes? 1 minute? How is it accessible? So he says, in a kind of ironic twist in a way, surprising, he says, Tasmat sarva prayatnena guru aradhanam kuru. It's almost like he says, in order to do this, he says, therefore, with all one's effort, one should propitiate, worship, or serve the Guru. So wait a minute, where did the Guru come from? It's like the Guru, why not just directly worship God, or turn within, remember yourself? Therefore, tasmat, therefore, sarva, all, prayatnena, with effort, with enthusiasm, guru ardhananam kuru, with all your effort, with all your enthusiasm, you should worship the Guru. He's saying, in order to get to me, I'm providing the Guru. And the irony is that Shakti, Devi, the one who asked the question on behalf of all of us, is actually the Guru. Guruva Parameshwari Anugrahika Shaktihi. The Guru is the grace-bestowing power of God. And so by the grace of the Guru, we're able to, what? understand our oneness with Brahman. And our identification with the body is no longer present. So it's quite a wonderful and key statement that the reason that we have the company of the Guru, that we're with the Guru, is to have our eyes opened, to learn how to remember. Because he's saying, if we remember that always, then liberation is easy. What a wonderful thing. So how do we remember? He says, go to the Guru. He doesn't give a lot of philosophical teaching here. He just says, go to the Guru. Because he knows the Guru will do what's necessary. And so we see here, we have the chanting, we have the meditation, we have the presence of the Guru, we have all the teachings. The atmosphere itself reminds us. As we're reminded continuously, and still we forget. We forget moment to moment to moment. So it's this steady practice that's necessary. Recollection is much more rare than forgetfulness. It's just like Sheikh Nasruddin. Nasruddin was taking a memory course, which many of us need. And so one of his friends said, "Oh, Sheikh Nasruddin, how is your memory course going?" He said, "Well, it's pretty good. Because now I sometimes remember I forgot something." So Nasruddin is reminding us that we have to remember. And so all of spiritual practices is remembrance. Kabir says, "Bhajana kara nisadina tute nata. Bhajana kara nisadina tute nata. Eka brahma ka sakala saha. Gadi gadi pala pala lehu sambha. Bhajana kara nisadina tute nata." Kabir says, "Oh, brother, never let your remembrance, never let your recollection, your worship be broken. Every minute, hold on to that principle, hold on to that recollection." A couple of weeks ago, there was an incident that happened, a very interesting incident that I contemplated a lot after it happened. There was a hummingbird that got caught in this room. All the doors were open, and the hummingbird flew in here, as birds will do in an open room like that. And it was quite a stir. And everybody saw it, and the most concerned ones, part of the thing about being here in the rural area is that we've all fallen in love with the birds and the deer and the plants and the sun and the moon and the trees and everything. So the bird was in here and everyone got concerned, and is a hummingbird. A hummingbird is very special. It's very symbolic of this remembrance, because the hummingbird sips the nectar. Like Tukaram says, "Brahma rasa gehi kara, tene pide radeda, patyanama vitobachi, anika vachena sevi." Drink the nectar of God's name. Sip that nectar. Take nothing else through the mouth. So this was Tukaram saying, "Anandas chintayanto mam, sulabam paramam padam." By contemplation continuously, we can easily attain the divine. So this bird is in here, and it's a special bird. It's a nectar-sipping bird. And the hummingbird is extraordinary because they just hover. You know, you probably know you know as much about hummingbirds as I do. But what I see is that they float, they hover, they've got amazing wing speed. And the other thing is they only eat nectar from flowers. Well, they eat the occasional bug that flies by too. But, but they drink the nectar of these flowers. So this bird is there, and we're all kind of walking. It's lunchtime. A few people are up there. Somebody's clapping. They're opening the windows, opening the door, everything open. We want the bird to come down and go out the window. It's just like Gurudev was saying yesterday, we get trapped in tamoguna, and we're up in the rafters, and the mind is dull, and we're not remembering the self. So you could say the bird's symbolic of that. His condition is like someone who's identified with the body and not Brahman. We want him to get free. We wanted him to get out. Everybody felt the same way. So some people watched, and some of us went to lunch. So I came back from lunch. I'm looking, well, everyone's still standing. The bird must still be there. The bird had been hovering and kind of looking, wondering, but he didn't want to come down. So he settled on one of these lights. And he was just there. So I'm wondering, later I'm thinking, what would be his condition of his mind? He's like, anyway, agitated, not happy, not free. So somebody walked by and said, I think you need a long stick. So a long stick was brought. Flowers were put on the end of the stick. I thought, wow, that's clever. I wonder if that's going to work. And sure enough, in the presence of the Guru. And so that we start sipping the inner nectar of the Guru's presence, and then we become closer to identification with Brahman. So the bird's interested in there, but he kind of floats around. The stick's too far away, so somebody else grabs a chair, takes the stick from that person, stands on the chair, and holds it up close to the bird, and the bird starts to hover, starts to go around the lights. And then the amazing thing was the bird settled and started to sip the nectar at the end of the stick. It's like, wow, this is great. And so he's there, and it's like everyone's kind of amazed. I was amazed. So then it's sort of like, wow, if we can just get the bird over to the door. And so he's going around, and finally he settles on the flower. So then the person begins to lean towards the door. Someone below takes the stick. It's a cooperative effort. It's like a ballet, and then walks it towards. The person goes out the door, and sure enough, the bird stayed with it. The bird had the courage to stay with that remembrance and gained his freedom. And if actually he got outside and he went right to those flowers and continued sipping the nectar. So that's the thing. That intoxicating nectar is what we need to do when the verse says, Anandas tintayanto mam sulabam paramam padam tasmat sarva paryatnena guru aradhanam kuru. It is easily attained by one who continuously remembers the Guru. Keep the company of the Guru in that continuous remembrance, the continuous presence of the divine will be easily attained by you. Sadguru Maharaj Ki Jai.
So for anyone wishing to join Dana's study groups, that's on Saturday mornings from 10 a.m. to 11:30. So again, 10 o'clock a.m. to 11:30 Eastern Standard Time, and you can join him for that study group. What? And they're in English. So our next speaker is Larry Holmes, and he led one of the study groups this past spring and summer on the heart and the heart and the purpose of the spiritual journey. Also, him and Mark Ketchell, Shivananda from down in Florida, are working on all of the podcasts. So they're available to everyone. They're called Wisdom Talks podcasts, and it's all about people's spiritual journeys, people's spiritual paths, and how to live that in daily life. So that's available to everybody. And also they're working on the part 2 of the Learn to Meditate course. So again, another online offering which is available to each and every one of us. So now Larry will speak for 10 minutes on his favorite verse from the Guru Gita.
Thank you, Devyani. This will be simple. It just, how do I put it? It's just that for me, it is how all of it impacts one's life. So I'll just pick up on some of the things that Joshua said, and certainly some of the things that Dana shared with you, and see if that strikes a chord with anyone. I'd like, when Dana was talking about the, if you will, the birth, the genesis of the Guru Gita, that Parvati asks Shiva. And in fact, in English, on top of Mount Kailash, she asked a great question. Yesterday at the intensive, we were in the afternoon session where Gurudev had a question and answer session. We were just really musing and thinking, and how do you get the best response from the Guru, the best answer to a question, and just trying to guide ourselves to that, to say, what do you want to know? What is the purpose of your question? What do you want to get? And so I think this is a brilliant question that she comes up with, which is, please give me initiation on the path of the Guru. Have compassion on me. I bow at your feet. So she's simply saying, I need to know. I want to know the answer to the most profound question of life. Who am I? How do I achieve that? How do I maintain and stay in that state? The Guru, Shiva, because Shiva is the first Guru. Yes? So the Guru responds, really, and he says, for your happiness, I will speak. And prior to that, he says, you are my very own form. So he's recognizing the oneness. Even as he's going to answer this question, he's saying, actually, you are my form, you are me. But for your happiness, I will speak. And then he gives a tick to the question. He says, this question, which is for the benefit of the whole world, has not been asked by anyone before. Now, I find that response really interesting because he's saying something that seems to be giving all the credit to the asker of the question. But I feel in myself that he's saying, you've asked the right question. Of all the things that could be asked, of all the things that people ask of me, of all the things that people have asked Bhagavan Nityananda, Baba Muktananda, Gurudev, this is a good question. This is the question to be asked. And so for me, I'm actually not thinking of just one of the shlokas. I'm thinking, think about that. Because the question is so good, what did she get? What did we get? A whole Guru Gita. That's how good the question was. We got the whole box and dice coming out of that. So she got it, but we also got it. So I think sometimes what can be learned from that, from my point of view, is that if you're going to ask a question, ask a good question, and then you'll get everything. There, I'll give you an example of not asking the best question. One of the things that I did around Baba Muktananda was to be his corresponding secretary. And so when people would write with questions, I'd go with those letters, with those questions, most of the time with Gurudev as my translator, and we'd ask, one point it occurred to me, maybe I should ask a question. I have this great access, you know. Why not? I don't know if you remember that. Anyway, somewhere in all of that, I said something like, Baba, I'd like to ask a question. Not a good idea. Anyway, every day you bring all of these questions. What do you need to ask another question for? Aren't you hearing the answers? You know? So this is where the ego gets us caught. Trying to be what he would call, you know, a little bit too smart, too clever. Whereas Parvati, she asked a really good question, and we got all of that. I'm thinking of a story of a time when, not long after I first met Baba, he came to Ann Arbor in Michigan, where I was a student and a teacher, as that works, and went to see him and was, you know, totally taken and moved, and had an intensive with him, the very early days of the intensives, had an intensive with him, and the first thing I wanted to say to him was, at the end of the intensive, thank you, it's wonderful, what should I do next? To the ashram, because he had set up the first ashram in the US, and one of the longtime devotees had spent time, a couple of them actually spent time with him in India, were running that ashram. And guess what they did every morning? Chanted the Guru Gita. And so I went and attempted, I should say, to chant the Guru Gita. Totally new to it. So I looked at this text and I thought, okay, I'll get into this. Chant starts, know nothing about Sanskrit, any of this, you know, so I'll follow the best I can. After about 10 or 20 verses, I'm thinking, when does this end? You know, how? Because you're struggling, you know, you really, well, I was really giving my focus to it, you know, trying my best, you know, just, and then at a certain point you're exhausted, you know, just from the mental focus to try to follow it. So I just said, just be with it, and turn the page when you think, okay, that's done, and it went on and on and on and on. But I noticed something happening. I noticed my feeling state, my mental state shifting. I can't give you the technical reason. I can say just being there in the chanting of the Guru Gita had a profound impact. And over some months, because I really did it at least 5 times a week. And then I'd go off to classes, whether it were my classes or classes that I was teaching, and it totally changed the day. Whether I understood or not, that was the thing that befuddled me. You know, like I didn't even understand what I was saying, what I was chanting, but the energy of it all. And slowly I began to learn to be able to chant. So I guess for me, it is, as it's often called, the indispensable text. I remember once, Luann, my wife, asked me, and I can't even remember the context, we were just mulling on about sadhana or what have you, and she said something like, you know, in Christianity, you have the Bible. That's what that's the bottom line. That's what everybody goes to. And I thought about it later. I thought, oh, the Guru Gita. That is the Bible. That has everything. Because it's not only about the Guru, it's about the whole path. It's about the whole purpose. It's about the goal. Everything is in the Guru Gita. And then I started to realize that is the text. That is the roots, as Dana was saying. The roots that lead us to fly to the experience of freedom. So I think I was learning something that was quite profound in the sense that in those days, it was just the Guru Gita, the physical text. and Baba was off someplace. By then he had settled in Oakland. So I wasn't with the physical guru. And I started to slowly pick it up, and over the years I got more of it, was that something like the Guru Gita, which is just a text, is the embodiment of the Guru. It really is the embodiment of the Guru. So I think sometimes I started to realize we shouldn't underestimate that it is just a text. And when we do swadhyaya, it is a study of the truth. It is a study of the highest teachings that are available to us. And if we follow that, in whatever way, it leads us. And so months later, I went to spend time with the physical guru. So the guru principle, as it were, was leading me to the physical guru. Gurudev did talk about the path, and he used that beautiful analogy of the three gunas. And Dana told the beautiful story of getting stuck in the tamo guna, the kind of lethargic, dull, not moving state. And then there's the more active rajas, the activity. You know, we get caught in, particularly I think in the Western world, in all the activity. Got to be doing. And I know that during the time we spent living and raising a family in Australia, the standard question you'd get, not just how, you know, like it would be, how you going, mate? You get that. But you'd also get busy? And you learn over a period of time, the answer would almost always be, flat out, you know. Now, flat out, if you understand a little bit of the Australian slang, that's short for flat out like a lizard drinking. And you've got to bring that image into your mind. You ever seen a lizard and the tongue goes out and it's drinking? You know, just... So it's flat out like a lizard drinking. And they cut it short and they simply say, flat out. But the point of it all is this, it's just busyness. You know, it doesn't have a meaning necessarily. And it was the point that Gurudev was making yesterday, that you can be busy, but what? You're doing everything all the time, everywhere. But in our culture, often you get kudos for that. If you say, flat out, man, you wouldn't believe how busy I am. People go, that's good. It's good to be busy, isn't it? Without clarity, without meaning, without direction. But the Guru Gita is saying, you want to be busy? This is what you should be busy at. This is the purpose and the meaning of our lives. And so, good busyness is good. And the Guru Gita, however you look at it, is a really good thing if you can start to learn from it. And I picked up this one that Dana was saying. It's a really good one because it has, you know, all three levels. It has the Sanskrit, it has the Devanagari script, it has the English translation, all in one text. But you look at this and you go through it, and it's a scripture, really. I mean, technically it's a mantra. It's a long, long, long mantra, and all of that. And if we get into that as often as we can, we are holding, yes, the words of Shiva, the words of the Adi Guru, the first Guru, with us. And I believe that it will give us what we need. There is a beautiful introduction by Gurudev in which, in my mind, he gives the essence of what the Guru Gita is about. And he says, the Guru Gita is not about anyone else but your own self. There is no Guru who is other. There is no Shiva who is other. There is no Parvati who is other. It is all you, yourself. Shiva is within you, the goddess, as Parvati is also within you. The conversation between Shiva and Parvati is really occurring between the Lord within you and that divine energy within you, the Guru, within you. So for me, that's the Guru Gita, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of our speakers and for providing a taste of all of the beautiful work and the beautiful understand. What? No. So we've had all of these beautiful entrees, and now, as somebody said, I think that was yesterday, and now the dessert. Gurudev.
With great respect and love, I would like to welcome everyone here to our satsang this morning. Last night, as Vinay played the Ragmala, which he said was a whole bunch of ragas, not all the ragas, but some of the ragas, this idea came to me that this is also a mala. A mala is a garland, and so I thought, why not? All three happen to be here today, and they have also been at it for a long time. So I remember Larry, we talked a little bit yesterday. I think I met him somewhere in the mid-70s, did a course, Siddhi Yoga, after 15 years of being with Baba to understand what Baba was about. We passed the course. I think they passed everybody. And everybody got a certificate. And sometimes I wondered about that. But anyway, we won't discuss that. Then we flew together, traveled together with Baba Muktananda. We arrived in Oakland in December 1978, and that's where I met the then manager of the Oakland, assistant manager, I should say, because the real manager was Swami Shantananda, I think. But he did everything. And as he himself tells, one day Baba said, why do you think you can do everything? There are other people who can do things too. In relation to some maintenance or something, if I am correct. And Niteshwari claims to have met us in 1983 at the Hilton at the airport in Los Angeles. I remember that event, that program, because we had a full hall, and I'd been on the Merv Griffin show at that time. I think, right, Merv Griffin? And I was only 21. Actually, I was turning 21 that October in LA. LA is where I got sannyas. LA is where I turned 21. And she's been with us now for 20-some years, I think, right? Many people know her only through the phone. And topic yesterday was about staying power. I hope all of you understand that. The title was simply Settle Down. It will happen in its own time. Huh? Happening. So we are a happening. And you heard everybody talk about the Guru Gita, and if you're watching the sky, as Dana said, in this rural area, we are on to a full moon tonight, till tomorrow night. And actually, when you start reading the scriptures, and you start, because we are also a part of that very nature, we seem to think we are different, but we are not. We are part of that nature. And I think situations like the hummingbird, we've had that in India now with the sparrow. We grew up in India. The birds were never lost. Humans were lost. It's a different story. But the birds were never lost. But in the last year or two, we've noticed sparrows running into the fan. As a child growing up, I never saw that. And so what if you read and are updated is that the mobile phones we use causes a disruption in the waves of nature. the birds, the fishes, the animals use the sounds of nature. And therefore, through the sounds of nature, they connect to each other, they connect to others, and that's how it goes on. But as we have supposedly become evolved, we have actually become dumb. And therefore, when we have become dumb, we've begun external sources, which makes hummingbirds and fishes and other animals get lost. And so much so that we don't even look at the sky to realize that it's bright because it's the full moon. And because it's the full moon, my mind is a little bit crazy. Because it's a new moon, my mind is a little bit crazy. Because the deity of the mind is the moon. And so when you read the Guru Gita, I also, Larry, grabbed the book from the bookstore on my way here, because I thought, okay, if I have to find a verse, I should know the meaning, at least as Acharya Jha puts it. And there's a lot that the Guru Gita talks about. I don't know where Baba Muktananda brought it from, because we didn't sing it in the early days. The early days we sang the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, we sang the Vishnu Sahasranam, some days Vishnu Sahasranam in the morning, Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the afternoon. It says that on the 7th of January 1972, that the Guru Gita began being sung. And that somewhere, Baba sings, if you listen to his solo tapes, the Marathi Guru Gita. It's from the Sri Guru Charitra, which he sang or read or studied during the days of the sadhana. And so it, because he loved his Guru, Bhagavan Nityananda, so he had an attachment to the Guru. And so when we begin to read and realize what the Sri Guru Gita talks about, it talks ultimately about the self, consciousness. And so how do we arrive there? How do we arrive? How do we get down from being caught in our own limitations? I wanted to ask Dana a question, which was, when you took the bird out, then did somebody close the door? That's the question that came into my mind. Because the possibility of it coming back in exists. And so, when I think of being with Baba Muktananda for the first 20 years of my life, I think that he provided us these opportunities to get away from. Why I think the bird sat on the light is it got tired hovering. It needed a place to rest. And we have imaginary places of rest. And the Guru gives us the real place to rest, which is the self. So in all of this that's happened in our lives over the last 2 years especially, everybody's talking about the sickness. And what I realize we don't talk about is health. Nobody's talking about how to be healthy. If you really read, nobody's telling you what you should do so you don't fall sick. Forget the vaccination, the mask, I'm not talking about that. What is it that I as a human should do so I don't get sick? And nobody's talking about it in depth. Unfortunately, the society that we live in today, as I've shared and I will share again, is that we are a mass that's led by the mass, by the multinational corporations, by the business, by the politicians, that I never even stopped to really think and ask myself, where am I headed? What is my physical? What is my mental? What is my emotional condition? What is my physical? What is my mental? What is my emotional? As I quickly read through the meaning while we sang the 182 verses, and there is Guru Gita of many versions. There's up to 380 something versions in the Divine Life Society of Swami Shivananda. So for those of us who think we have 182 is a lot, we're only at 50% of what the Divine Life Society sings. Ultimately, Dana made a good joke. Ananyas chintayanto mam. It comes in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita too. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye bhaja ye janaha paripasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyam. A similar verse, Lord Krishna says, he who uninterruptedly, Ananyas chintayanto mam means without any distractions, without getting lost, stays focused, will be taken care of. And I'll share two simple stories. One is from the, I think, Aesop fables. And I was trying to find another story which I know, but I'll say the fable story first. That a crow takes a piece of cheese from a window. That you are so beautiful. Maybe it's an Australian crow. They call it something else. Magpie, some raven. Anyway. Again, in the modernization of our world, crows are disappearing too. I don't know where, but they are. So the fox says, you are so beautiful. Never have I seen such beautiful white like you. Crow is black. Just in case you forgot. So, and I am sure you have a tolerable voice, and if it's as fine as your complexion, I know that another bird cannot stand in competition with you. So the crow, tickled with this very civil language, nestled and wriggled about. So it's a little dubious as to the particular of her voice. But when any one of us are flattered, the crow began to sing. In India we say cow, 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 ka, ka, ka. And guess what happened? The piece of cheese fell. The fox took its piece of cheese and went about its way. Many people have lots of comments on this about flattery, about the ego, and so on and so forth, and how we should be so wise not to fall into this trap. But we all do. An Indian version of the story is that a crow is flying. It has a piece of meat in its mouth. Many crows or other so-called meat-eating birds are around. The crow wants to fly faster, the crow wants to get away, the crow wants to eat its meat. But as it happened with the hummingbird, the crow begins to get tired. As it begins to get tired and wants to dump and drop and get rid of all these people, it has a realization. I'm just giving you a moment to think. What is the realization? Drop the meat. So the crow drops the meat, and all the birds go. Now, depending on which sage you read telling this story, tells us this is our situation in life. We all have a piece. I know Niteshwari said meat is non-veg, but we all have a piece of meat, piece of action, a piece of activity. Larry said the question really is, what are we busy about? But we are busy. You call me, I am busy. What are you busy about? That's what we have to think, we have to ask ourselves is, how do I drop this that keeps me busy, that keeps me occupied? So the Guru Gita tries to teach us that take your mind away from that meat, that obsession, that which keeps you occupied, and begin to focus upon the truth. Begin to focus upon the truth. When we begin to realize there's a lot of jokes, a lot of laughter, a lot of humor around all of these things, and we know most of them, and we've personally and directly experienced, and that's why we are able to laugh at it at some level, knowing that realization, unfortunately, always dawns later. And that's the only thing I tell God sometimes. If only it dawned a little bit earlier. But it always dawns after the fact. Now, I don't know if it's a flaw in the system or it's the individual who doesn't realize that if my mind becomes established in the truth, if I was to allow my mind to become established in the truth, then none of this would matter. Which gave me a book a couple of weeks ago, I think, and it's from Swami Ishwarananda. Ishwarananda, isn't it? Yes. Yes. He says, that a devotee with his greatest faith and assured freedom, he has the instinctive discrimination that all of, and gives all of these reasons. And he says, such is the absorption and the attachment. The attachment is divine. Such is the absorption and the attachment is divine. Most human beings, the attachment is to external objects. The attachment is to external objects, and that leads to bondage, that leads to endless impediments, and hence defiling and undesirable. And he says, if we were to talk about divine love and this mortal love, then the mortal love would be the wrong expression of love. Because you are not expected to cease loving, for it is not possible. Only learn to love in the proper way. Love is the essence, not the details. Love is the essence, not the details. In casual contacts, people are very nice. When you just meet them on the rail trail, shopping mall, hi. They can appreciate and inspire each other. But if that contact grows into an intimacy, and some of them decide to live together, then they start differing, criticizing, and ultimately quarreling. At the most, they may develop a thick skin or reconcile themselves stoically to hear with everything and make the best of the situation. But surely the thrill of mutually participating love is gone. I'm amazed, huh? Swami Ishwarananda speaking like this. I've never met him. Umesh, I think, has met him. Very wise, very learned, very witty, and from reading him and what little I know of him, very funny too. I was fortunate to go to the program that was held 16 days after he passed, and many came and many shared about him. And he says, to an enlightened person, just a moment's contact, the slightest movement of consciousness is enough to convey the full beauty of the Absolute. Just a smile from a passing acquaintance, or the giggling of a baby fondled by its mother under the wayside tree, or even the nodding of the treetops, the feel of the breath in the nostrils, that is enough. Just think of the depth of his thought. Of course, he goes on, it's a lot that is shared and that is said here. I'll come to my verse, right? I was not told to find a verse, but I found one. It's a verse that many sing from the Guru Gita. We sing it whenever we sing the Guru Gita. And Dr. Raki began singing it when she started the Punarnava, maybe when she became a doctor. A wonderful verse which says, Anandamananda karam prasannam jnana swarupam nijabodha yuktam yogindra medium bhavaroga vaidyam shrimad gurum nityam aham namami. I offer salutations regularly to Sri Guru, who is the bestower of Ananda, who joyously gives Ananda, who is always the embodiment of Ananda. Jnana Swarupam Nijabodha Yuktam, who's established in the nature of who am I. And who's united, whose disposition is the knowledge of the self. And how is he? He's the king of yogis, the master of yogis, Bhavaroga Vaidyam. He is the Vaidya, or the doctor, who frees us from the sickness of being caught in the world. Who takes us, as Swami Ishwarananda says, to realize that these ripples of love that awaken within you are nothing but ripples of consciousness. These ripples that awaken within us are nothing but ripples of consciousness. So Acharya says, I always bow to that glorious Guru, who is the embodiment of bliss and the bestower of bliss, who has a joyful disposition, who is the embodiment of knowledge and is absorbed in the knowledge of his own self. He is the master of yogis, who is worthy of our worship and who is the physician for the disease of worldly existence. It's verse number 93. So, There are many verses like that, that if you begin to look at and begin to understand and make yourself realize here that we're not, because many people, when we talk about a guru or the guru, we think of the guru as a person. But the guru is a principle, is an energy that needs to be awakened by each and every one of us, by ananyas chintayantoma. By relentlessly remembrance, constant remembrance. Because otherwise, we'll be like the crow with a piece of cheese, we'll be like the crow with a piece of meat, and surrounded by a lot of noise, busy, flat out. And then you need a flat white so you don't get flat out. Flat white is what in New York City you call regular coffee, which is with milk and sugar. I don't know now, but in the 80s when I first came to New York, and the man said, "What do you want?" I said, "What do you mean, what do I want?" He said, "You want regular, you want black, or do you want white?" And I had no idea what he meant by regular, black, or white. I asked the New Yorker with me, and it had to be quick, because it's like, if you don't know, I'll serve the next person. It's like, wait a minute, I need a moment, you know? And it doesn't say on the board, black, regular, white, whatever, you know? So in this whole process of sadhana, I think it's the same thing. You got to figure out, do I want black? Do I want white? Do I want regular? Similar to what I said yesterday. You know, what would you like? Anything. If I told him anything, he would probably throw a glass of hot coffee at me. You know? Because he's a New Yorker. He doesn't have time to waste upon you. He's busy. He's flat out. He's got 3 more people after you. So, when we think of satsang, whether it's in person, whether it's online, the idea is to constantly align the mind to that truth. Anityam khandayet sarvam, one of the verses of the Guru Gita says. You reject that which is not real. You learn to reject that which is anitya. And in the Bhagavad Gita it says, Anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. We are basically worshipping that which is not real. We are basically worshipping that which does not give me sukha. And to get away from that, Krishna says, perform worship. Chant the name of God. So, you heard Niteshwari, you heard Dana, you heard Larry, you heard me. And this continues, this goes on till we drop the piece of meat. Because the day we drop the piece of meat, we got it. That all of this is simply noise. And I must learn to drop it. So, we're going to chant now. The words are here. Vithala Vitale, Panduranga Vitale. Do you have a card? Oh, no. Panduranga Vitale. If you look in your chanting book, it must be chant number something. I think maybe 5. So chant and then Vithala, Vitthale, Panduranga, Vitthale, Vithala, Vitthale, Panduranga, सब कुछ दिया आपने बेच करूं क्या नमस्कार की बेच करूं जोड़ू मैं दोनों नमस्कार की बेच करूं जोड़ू मैं दोनों पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति 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 सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय।
And may we all continue to sip or drink the nectar with all of our upcoming programs. On October 2nd, we have Baba Muktananda's 39th Mahasamadhi, and that day we'll be having our in-person workshop here, our intensive here, and that will also be available to everybody virtually as well. So that's October 2nd. And then October 6th to October 14th, we'll have the Sharad Navaratra celebrations here. Also, Gurudev's birthday is on October 6th, so we'll be beginning the Navaratra with the celebration of his birthday as well. October 23rd to the 25th, Gurudev is being hosted at Synchronicity in Virginia, so Faber, Virginia. So if anybody knows of anybody down along that coastal area who you'd like to introduce to Gurudev or have them visit him there, that's October 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Everyone will be getting a flyer on that satsang on that weekend, so you can. That will be the last program here. That's right after Thanksgiving, that Sunday. So with that, everybody's invited to come up for darshan, followed by lunch prasad. And again, everyone kindly remember to keep your masks on for darshan as well as for the serving of the lunch. And then once you reach your seated area, you can remove it to have your prasad. Sadhgurunad Maharaj Ki Jai.